So this is new SMS.
Ben Martin stopped, Tina survived. Jeff in managing, Maite in Mumbula in capital.
This is what I got now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Cape Town.
Good evening.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic of South Africa is ready to address you on his new cabinet. Over to you, President. Thank you. Thanks.
Fellow South Africans, ladies and gentlemen of the media, I'm pleased to join you on Africa Day as we conclude our transition to a new administration following the 5th National General Elections. I announced on Saturday that we have entered the second phase of our transition to a national democratic society. I also said this would be a radical phase of socio-economic transformation. It is my pleasure today to announce the members of the National Executive who have been tasked with improving and speeding up the implementation of our progressive policies and programs. The team will implement the 5-year medium-term strategic framework of government, which has been developed using the National Development Plan and the ANC manifesto. To improve implementation and ensure impact, we have reconfigured some departments, with others have been extended to improve capacity. I will briefly outline the changes and then announce the names of the new ministers and deputy ministers. We have established a Ministry of Telecommunications and Postal Services. Our country has a fast-growing telecommunications sector, which in 2012 was estimated at being worth 180 billion rand. We also see a great developmental value in the post office, given its role of delivering financial services to remote areas of our country. This new department will ensure that the country derives more value out of the booming information communications and telecommunications industry and the postal services sector. The National Planning Commission, as well as the Performance Monitoring and Evaluation Ministries in the Presidency, have been combined into one ministry to harmonize the planning and monitoring functions. This ministry will also continue to be responsible for youth development. We have established a new communications ministry, which will be responsible for overarching communication policy and strategy, information dissemination, and publicity, as well as the branding of the country abroad. Improving communication and marketing will promote an informed citizenry and also assist the country to promote investments, economic growth, and job creation. This ministry will be formed out of the following components: the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, the SA Broadcasting Corporation, Government Communications and Information System, Brand SA, and the Media Development and Diversity Agency. Ladies and gentlemen, the functions related to support for people with disabilities and children will be transferred to the Department of Social Development. The current Ministry of Women, Children, and People with Disability is now the Ministry of Women, which will be located in the Presidency. The Women's Ministry will champion the achievement of women's socio-economic empowerment and women's rights. To further improve efficiency in the criminal justice system, we have combined the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development with the Correctional Services Department. The department will now be called the Department of Justice and Correctional Services. Ladies and gentlemen, we have made an undertaking to significantly improve the provision of water and sanitation to our communities in the new term. In this regard, we have established the Ministry of Water and Sanitation. You will recall that we stated in the inauguration address that the economy will take center stage. Development of the small business sector is critical to economic development and transformation. We have thus established a new ministry for small business development. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to announce the members of the National Executive. The Deputy President is Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. With regard to the ministers, the Minister in the Presidency is Mr. Jeff Khadeb. The Minister of Women in the Presidency is Ms. Susan Shabangu. The Minister of Justice and Correctional Services is Mr. Michael Masuta. The Minister of Public Service and Administration is Mr. Collins Chaban. The Minister of Defense and Military Veterans is Ms. Nosiviwe Mapisa Ngakula. The Minister of Home Affairs is Mr. Malusi Kikaba. The Minister of Environment Affairs is Ms. Edna Molewa. The Minister of State Security is Mr. David Mashobo. The Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services is Mr. Siyabonga Kwele. The Minister of Police is Mr. Kosinati Tleko. The Minister of Trade and Industry is Dr. Rob Davis. The Minister of Finance is Mr. Tlantlanene. The Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries is Mr. Senzeni Zokwana. The Minister of Water and Sanitation is Ms. Nomvula Monkonyan. The Minister of Basic Education is Ms. Angie Motsekga. The Minister of Health is Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. The Minister of International Relations and Cooperation is Ms. Maite Kwane Mashaba. The Minister of Rural Development and Land Reform is Mr. Kukile Nkwinti. The Minister of Higher Education and Training is Dr. Bongenkosi Plate Nzimande. The Minister of Economic Development is Mr. Ibrahim Patel. The Minister of Transport is Mr. Dipuo Peters. The Minister of Minerals Resources is Advocate Mwako Ramatlodi. The Minister of Social Development is Ms. Batabile Dlamini. The Minister of Public Enterprises is Ms. Lynn Brown. The Minister of Sport and Recreation is Mr. Fikile Mbalula. The Minister of Labor is Ms. Mildred Oliphant. The Minister of Arts and Culture is Mr. Nati Mtetwa. The Minister of Public Works is Mr. Tulas Nesi. The Minister of Small Business Development is Ms. Lindy Wezulu. The Minister of Energy is Ms. Tina Jumat Peterson. The Minister of Science and Technology is Ms. Naledi Pando. The Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs is Mr. Pravin Gordon. The Minister of Communications is Ms. Faith Mutambi. The Minister of Human Settlement is Ms. Lindy Wesisulu. The Minister of Tourism is Mr. Derek Hanako. The Deputy Ministers are as follows. The Deputy Ministers are Deputy Minister of Human Settlement is Ms. Zokota Hendricks. The Deputy Minister of Basic Education is Mr. N. Visetti. Deputy Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, responsible for provincial and local government, is Mr. Andres Nel. The Deputy Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, responsible for Traditional Affairs, is Mr. Obed Bopela. The Deputy Minister of Defense and Military Veterans is Mr. K.B. Maposwe. The Deputy Minister in the Presidency is Mr. Buti Manamela. The Deputy Minister of Tourism is Ms. Thokozile Xhasa. The Deputy Minister of Health is Dr. Joe Pasha. The Deputy Minister of Public Service and Administration is Ayanda Dlodlo. The Deputy Minister of Home Affairs is Ms. Fatima Chauhan. The Deputy Minister of Public Enterprises is Mr. Gratitude Makwanashe. The Deputy Ministry, the Ministry of Justice and Correctional Services will have 2 Deputy Ministers. They are Mr. John Jeffrey, responsible for the Justice and Constitutional Development component, and Mr. Tabang Makwetla, responsible for the Correctional Services portfolio. The Deputy Minister of Environment Affairs is Ms. Barbara Thompson. The Deputy Minister of Sport and Recreation is Mr. Gerrit Oosthuizen. The Deputy Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries is Mr. Peggy Kyle. The Deputy Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services is Ms. Hlengiwe Mkhize. The Deputy Minister of State Security is Ms. Ellen Molekane. Deputy Minister of Police is Maggie Sojo. The Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry is Mzwandile Masina. International Relations and Cooperation will remain with 2 Deputy Ministers. These are Ms. Noma India Mfeketo and Mr. Llewellyn Landers. The Deputy Minister of Finance is Mr. Mcebisi Jonas. The Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation is Ms. Pam Shwete. About 17 million South Africans live in rural areas. However, rural areas bear the brunt of poverty, joblessness, and gross inequality, particularly former homeland areas. Given this reality, I've decided to appoint 2 deputy ministers for rural development and land reform. They are Mr. Mtebisi Squacha and Ms. Candice Mashiko Dlamini. Deputy Minister of Higher Education and Training is Mr. Mduduzi Manana. The Deputy Minister of Economic Development is Mr. Madala Masuku. The Deputy Minister of Transport is Ms. Cindy Chikunga. The Deputy Minister of Mineral Resources is Mr. Godfrey Oliphant. The Deputy Minister of Social Development is Ms. Henrietta Mokopane Zulu. The Labour portfolio will gain a deputy minister given the important role of the department in the economic cluster. The deputy minister is Inkosi Pategile Olomisa. The deputy minister of Arts and Culture is Ms. Rejoice Mabuda Fase. The deputy minister of Public Works is Mr. Jeremy Crone. The Deputy Minister of Small Business Development is Ms. Elizabeth Tabete. The Deputy Minister of Energy is Ms. Tembi Machola. The Deputy Minister of Communications is Ms. Stella Ndabeni Abrams. I've appointed 20 men and 15 women ministers, as well as 20 men and 16 women deputy ministers. We are happy to be moving closer to our target of having more women in cabinet and the national executive as a whole. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe and all the ministers and deputy ministers who served in the 4th administration. Their contribution is improvement of the quality of life of our people is highly appreciated. We wish Deputy President Ramaphosa and all the newly appointed ministers and deputy ministers all the best as they lead the nation in moving the country forward. I thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies. The President will not take any questions. I think we've come to the end of this briefing, and thank you so much for being patient with us. Thank you.